Good evening. I am Jared Halston, and this is my formal business project on how to conduct business in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is for Ms. Margaret Blue at the University of Southern Mississippi in my IT 380 Organizational Communications class. Today's date is November 2nd, 2018. So first of all, I'd like to go ahead and mention that the main purpose of this is to exemplify the acceptable business practices in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And so this report is essentially going to go through some of the business practices, the culture, and different scenarios that could potentially happen there, as well as the flight getting there, your travel while you're there, the amenities that are there at the hotel that I've chosen, and a few other things as well. So first of all, one thing that I'd like to hit on, you'll find that Argentina has begun to identify more with European roots than its Latin American influence. Within the last decade, Argentinian businesses have become more and more westernized. Argentinians also respect senior members of the corporate world and value personal relationships. Economically, Argentina is the second largest economy in South America, with its primary industries being information and communication technology, agriculture, and tourism. So again, thank you for this opportunity to prepare this report. If I can provide additional help on our quest to bring our business to Argentina, please contact me through other means that I have given you already. So just as a further I'd like to go through my summary really quick. So Argentina has become a very westernized business culture again. This is something that's very, very prominent and very seen, is that they're much more Western than they are Latin American in their business culture. But although Argentina has become very westernized, they still hold some traditional values, including the respect, as I already mentioned, for senior leaders in the corporate world and high regard for personal relationships. Another fun fact, Spanish is the official and most used language in Argentina, and this can provide an issue when it comes to communication. Having an individual that speaks Spanish fluently is a must if you're doing business in Argentina. Granted, English is spoken widely in large cities, particularly in Buenos Aires, which is the capital of Argentina, but Spanish is still predominant. So protocols and methods for starting a business can be very difficult in Argentina. As a very bureaucratic country, it can be very strenuous, meticulous, and time-consuming to establish land permits, electricity, and obtain construction permits. Doing business in a foreign country will present some challenges, but proper preparation and research will help in planning for the end home. So, in general, a guide for doing business in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Argentina is located in South America, actually in the southeast region of South America. And they're the 8th largest country in the world and second largest in South America, only smaller than Brazil. They also have the second largest economy in South America, again, second to Brazil. Granted, Argentina has very strong roots in European, primarily Spain, influences and Latin American influences, of course, just because they're in Latin America. And Argentinians highly value their senior corporate leaders. I keep reiterating this because this is something that is very, very important, very, very prominent again throughout their culture. So one would expect several barriers to entry while attempting to conduct business in Argentina. An individual would do well as long as they understand the culture and language though. And it's advisable that before sending in any associate to Argentina, that they be educated in the business culture and how to navigate the city. Let's see. Anyway, so there's some really cool things about Argentinian business in Buenos Aires. For starters, they're much more laid back than you would typically see in America. So they're not going to start off a conversation or a meeting going directly into business. They're going to wait a little while, have some small talk, chat a little bit, and be social. And this is a testament to just their highly social lifestyles. Their social life, just personal relationships, are something that's very, very important to them. But it is also very important to note that even though personal relationships are incredibly important, all contracts and agreements must be put on paper and signed by both parties. Because Argentinian business people are infamous for breaking handshake agreements and changing plans altogether for their own personal benefit, which is why everything must be on paper and signed. Of course, like anyone else in a capitalist world, you're going to do what's best for yourself. And if you need to change those plans, Argentinians, typically in Buenos Aires, through the research that I've done, um, have no problem taking means to make sure that they do what they have to do for themselves. I would like to go through some findings of getting into presenting business opportunities in Argentina. So I've created a business trip that would be scheduled for November 21st through the 28th to Buenos Aires. Travel is booked so that you would arrive in Buenos Aires at 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, November 22nd. This will allow you to have an ample amount of time to become familiar with the area before your meetings begin on the 30th of November. And the following information reviews, the next information I'm going to go through is going to be the per diem rates, flight information, and the hotel information for the trip. First of all, your per diem rates. Per diem rates are very basically the amounts of money that you can use on particular things per day while you're on a business trip or some other formal trip or anywhere else. And so for the maximum US dollar rates for reimbursement for executives traveling on official business in foreign in Argentina would be $267 per night in Buenos Aires for lodging, and your meals and incidentals rate is going to be $129 per day. And the maximum allowed per day combining lodging and meals and incidentals is going to be $456, which of course is just a combination of the $267 a night for the hotel, $129 per day for food and incidentals. So I'll go into some flight information. So the flight that I found is going to be the cheapest flight, and through my personal experience, I prefer Delta over some of the other airlines. But anyway, I've chosen a Delta Airlines flight that will depart from New Orleans International Airport on Wednesday, November 21st, 2018, because it is one of the nearest airports to us other than Jackson, and they had this flight available from New Orleans. The flight's an overnight flight, which is why if you notice that the business trip is technically from November 21st all the way, the business trip starts on November 21st, but you don't arrive. You're not arriving in Buenos Aires until the 22nd, and that's because it is an overnight flight. It's a long way to travel. Excuse me. But you will arrive on the morning, Thursday, November 22nd, 2018, and the return flight on Delta Airlines will leave Buenos Aires on Wednesday, November 28th, 2018, with arrival in New Orleans on Thursday, November 29th, 2018. So, total airfare for these flights is going to be $1,314. And all this information was found at Delta Airlines on Delta's website. So here's some of the accommodations that I found in Buenos Aires. So lodging has been reserved at the Hilton Buenos Aires. The hotel is located in the harbor Puerto Madero, which is in, of course, one of the downtown areas in Buenos Aires. And this hotel, being a Hilton has a very high, a very good reputation. They offer many amenities to make sure that you're comfortable, you have everything you possibly need to conduct business and do everything that you would possibly need to do while you're there. So some of these things that they do have include a business center, so you have meetings there. They have offices. They have express mail, so going in and out comes out very quickly. They have fax machines, meeting rooms. They have personal modems, so you have your own Wi-Fi that you're not having to worry about sharing with anybody else or getting cut off or having too much traffic going through it. That would slow it down. You also have office rentals, printers, video conferencing capabilities, and public area Wi-Fi whenever you need to move from location to location or room to room. And the lodging per diem is $267 a night, I'd like to reiterate. But for this hotel, it is $189 a night. So we're coming in under our budget for the per diem rate. And for the total cost for the 6-night stay at the Hilton Buenos Aires is $1,134. So included in the price of the stay, the hotel will provide local area transportation to and from the hotel within Buenos Aires. So this is something pretty cool. Some hotels around the world provide this. Some don't. Since this is a nicer hotel in a very large city, it's something that is absolutely phenomenal to be provided. And it's, of course, just going to and from the hotel. So there are other means, though, that the hotel provides to make sure you can get wherever you need to if you need to leave in any other location. So guest rooms specifically include several amenities within themselves as well. And so they have all sorts of stuff to just make sure you're incredibly comfortable. But when you enter the hotel, you'll be greeted by a very well-educated staff, multilingual staff, and they'll help with anything you may need. The Hilton staff is very, they're very helpful. They do everything they can. I actually called this hotel specifically and just to double check some of the information on their website. And even though I'm just a college student doing a project, they were very happy to help and answer some questions that I had. When you enter the hotel, you walk into this big, huge atrium. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And that's one of the first things that just draws you into the hotel. But having multilingual staff is an incredible asset because they can help you with if you need translation on something, if you need to switch over a piece of paper, if you need location, directions to get to a specific location, whatever that the situation may be. But anyway, once you've received your room key, you walk through that massive and impressive atrium-style lobby, which is just an aesthetic feast for the eyes. And during your week-long stay, the Hilton will offer a car rental service, and so this is additional to the complimentary transportation back and forth. But the issue with this is that you do have to rent the car, and renting a car means you have to have a driver's license. And unfortunately, in Buenos Aires, it is very, very difficult to obtain a driver's license, especially if you are not from Buenos Aires or another Latin American country, or South American country specifically. Also, should you need a haircut or manicure while you're there, the hotel offers a full-service beauty salon to fit your personal needs, and they can take care of you in any way possible. And you also have the pleasure to take advantage of the laundry service that they provide, and so you essentially just collect your laundry and they'll do it for you. They'll iron your clothes after they wash it and bring it back already folded and ready to go, which is also another complimentary amenity there. And on your free evenings, the hotel is also home to a very lovely traditional Argentinian-style restaurant and bar that is certain to exceed your dining and leisure expectations. So I've already gone over several points of travel through Buenos Aires, but there's one point, one option for you that I have not spoken to you about, which I believe is, whether it's the best option or not, is the most expensive and exciting option. What that is that this hotel also provides an executive vehicle, and so it's essentially you have your own car and your own driver to take you wherever you need to go, and really just give you a full VIP service. Granted, this is not free and can be kind of expensive, but if you want privacy and you don't have to wait for your hotel driver to pick you up, it's essentially your own personal chauffeur. So doing business in Buenos Aires specifically, now that I've gotten a few of the just key findings out of the way, how to get there, the amenities and whatnot. So doing business in Buenos Aires, this is really getting down to some of the deeper parts of it. So dressing for success. Now granted, as I mentioned earlier, Buenos Aires is a very socially minded culture. And Argentinian businessmen and women have a tendency to be very fashion forward and make it a point to look good while conducting business, which isn't a bad thing. We all like to look good. And the most important factor is that you're clean and wearing stylish clothing. Businessmen are expected to wear a suit and tie. Suits don't necessarily have to be a certain color, so long as they're not flamboyant. So nothing with just big pink or yellow or has all sorts of crazy patterns on it that stand out too much. They should be on the conservative side, whether they're patterned or stylized. They do need to be conservative though and have a very professional and fashionable look. Also, you need to make a point if you're wearing a tie, men are wearing a tie, they also need to wear a jacket with the tie, complete the look, and just create the whole look. Women, though, tend to dress more femininely, and so it's not unheard of. It's actually very common for women to wear short skirts and high heels and a nice blouse all the time. Where in the U.S. you see women are typically going away from that, and you see more of the pantsuit. Here, women dress very femininely in Argentina. But due to very hot summers, though, most Argentinian businesses shut down for the summer months. But they start right back again in the winter. During the hotter months, though, it is okay in casual settings to wear button-downs with rolled sleeves, shorts, and even trendy t-shirts. But this is only acceptable in a social, casual setting, though, not necessarily in the business environment. And I might mention, since Argentina is in the southern hemisphere, their seasons are actually the opposite of what they are in the U.S. and what we're used to. So their summer months actually start in October. Starts in spring, runs through November, December, January, February, and all the way through March. So again, I'm just going to go over the language in Buenos Aires. Spanish is spoken by 100% of the locals in Buenos Aires. And as an emerging market on the world stage, though, Buenos Aires, you can be exposed to several different languages. There are different Russian businesses that go through there are Chinese businesses, Indonesian, several different businesses and cultures of people that go through Buenos Aires because they are a very developing economy there. But English is also very widely spoken, but not by everyone. And even when it is spoken, it's not their first and most common language. So now I'm going to dig into some of the business protocol in Buenos Aires. So first of all, in business meetings, one of the first things that you'll notice in the business environment of Argentina in general, is that Argentinians are not very concerned with punctuality. Now, most meetings will be scheduled later in the morning, around 9 a.m., but may not start until 9:30 or even 9:45 a.m. But as long as you're not obscenely late, it will be socially acceptable. In times though, you may be requested to be on time. Even then, showing up 10 minutes late is still acceptable most of the time, but it's not advised. Just because of the values that typical Americans have in American business culture. If a meeting is supposed to start at, let's say, 7 o'clock in the morning, then you're expected to be there by 6:45 a.m. to be ready to go to start at 7 in the morning. Where here in Argentina, you see kind of a switch of that where it's much more relaxed and they take a lot of time focusing on the social aspect. You should also expect a large amount of small talk and social interaction before and after any event or meeting. Oftentimes, this is the reason that meetings begin late and even end even later. In many instances, as a meeting is going well, either business-mindedly or socially, Argentinians will continue the meeting and push everything else back until they're done. Interestingly, small talk is never around politics. You have a lot of Americans that talk politics in their small talk, but it's almost completely unheard of in Argentinian culture. So, in order to greet business associates, it's a little bit different from what we see here in the U.S. So, when you're greeting a man, you want to shake his hand just as you would here in the U.S. You want to have a firm handshake, make eye contact with him, but expect to be close. Argentinians don't have as much of a barrier or a bubble like Americans do. They do tend to be very close to each other whenever they're communicating and greeting each other. Now, greeting a woman is going to be much different. So, typically, the way you would greet a woman would be a single cheek-to-cheek kiss on each side for the woman. But you may also see the cheek-to-cheek kiss between men if they're very close, their family, or maybe it's a younger male that's being brought up almost as in a son role. Um, let's see, it is very likely though that your contacts will speak English, but as aforementioned, Spanish is the primary language. In most cases, the informal vos is acceptable and widely used. Usted is still more appropriate when speaking to an older or more highly revered person than yourself, though. And so that's something that you need to be careful about when you're greeting people. And so you're not going to use the vos verb, which is a Spanish verb. You don't want to use vos at the first meeting. You want to try to be as respectful as possible and go ahead and use usted. Then once it is made clear that you have a personal and social relationship, then you can go into using vos, which is the more preferred word. So I also, since a lot of Argentinian business meetings are social events, they do have a lot of dining meetings. So some of the dining etiquette here. So even over business meals, Argentinians don't mind having a glass of wine or two with their meal, but they don't cross that limit of being inebriated. Argentinians aren't heavy drinkers. They don't drink a lot, and they don't become typically drunk, as a lot of Americans would. But if you're not familiar with pouring wine, you should make an effort to learn. There are a lot of different things within the Argentinian culture that relate around the way you pour the wine, who you're pouring it for, and the manner you pour it to them. But one quick thing is you never pour a glass of wine for another person backwards into the glass. So essentially you're holding the glass here, pour it backwards into the glass. So if you're holding the glass here, you don't want to pour it backwards. You always want to pour forward or to the side, typically, because pouring it backwards would be a sign to the person that you do not like them, or you don't appreciate them, or you don't believe that what they're saying is true. It's essentially a sign of disrespect. And the same goes for pouring with your left hand. You always want to use your right hand. Right hand's the predominant hand, whether you're left-handed or not. You always want to make sure you try to use your right hand in situations like that. Also during their dining events, you'll be introduced to a type of tea called mate. The tea is usually served from a gourd with a silver straw. It's kind of cool. But in order to partake, you must take a sip and then pass it to your partner, and they will do the same. And so simply, you're just taking a sip and passing it along to the other people at the table. Another thing to mention, the first person in the room will be the head of the table, the most highly revered, highest ranking person. Most of the time, it's the eldest as well. And they're going to sit at the head of the table, and they will speak first, and then we'll go in descending order of who is the most powerful and has the most highly revered position. While eating, most customs are not completely outside the norm from what is usual in the U.S. Do make sure that your hands are seen at all times. So you don't want to. You can place your wrists on the table, but not your elbows. But your hands should always be seen. Your hands should not be in your lap. That's another sign of disrespect. They don't see what's going on. They want to know what you're doing with your hands, so your hands should always be seen. It's seen as impolite to jump into business conversations without small talk first. As I've said several times already, the social relationships that they have are the most important, and that's what they want to establish first and foremost before getting into the business side. And so you always want to wait on your Argentinian counterparts to begin a conversation in regards to business dealings. You want to let them bring it up when they're ready, when they feel comfortable and they have completed all of small talk and they've established the relationship with you that they want to have. So briefly, I'm going to give you a few other recommendations for successful dining in Buenos Aires. So don't switch hands with your fork and knife. So just like you do in the U.S., your fork's in your left hand, your knife is in the right, so you can cut meat all at the same time, but you're not going to constantly swap. So you don't cut if you're eating steak, you won't cut it in several little bits as if you were for a child, and then just eat and switch your fork to your right hand and start eating. You're going to maintain those same hands. Now, when finished eating, you're going to place your silverware facing downward on the plate. You don't want to face it upward, it means you're dissatisfied, so you'll place it downward on the plate, signifying that you are done and you enjoy the meal. And then utensils in front of your plate are for dessert, which this is something that we're not typically used to here in the U.S. And so in front of the plate, if you were to reach past the plate, farther in toward the table, there should be some silverware that would be specifically for dessert alone. Some gift giving etiquette. So when invited to someone's home is always a good idea to bring some sort of gift. And since most Argentinians are known to drink at least some alcohol, and because the tax rate on imported alcohol is so high, one of the most well-received gifts is imported liquor of some sort. Now, even though many people have different tastes, and taste is subjective to what you like, Argentina is still a South American country, which means that the most well-received liquors are going to be red or white wines, or a sugar-based clear liquor such as rum. Let's go into some of the business negotiations. So, in Argentinian negotiations can sometimes be very difficult. Now, as previously mentioned, Argentinians prefer to be social before they conduct business, which can create time constraints for the business meeting. Argentinians also like to negotiate with individuals that are on the same level or have the same rank as they do. It's seen as an insult to send a lower level person to speak with a high ranking individual. And it's also very, very important to understand that all decisions are made from the top down, which means that the highest ranking official must make the final decision whether they're in the room or not. So whatever decision you think you may come to in the meeting, that person still has to take that to their higher up. That way the highest person can make the decision and send it back down the chain of command. So some business card etiquette. This is an area that's not very complicated in Argentina. Essentially, you want to make sure that it's in Spanish and not English. And you don't want to point. That's something you could do. You don't want to point at the card. You don't want to point at your phone number or your name or whatever it may be. But it's also you don't want to point anywhere. Rather than it's seen as disrespectful to point with a single finger, so you want to use your whole hand to point. Alright, they do have a lot of nonverbal communication too, which is something that all humans have. So first of all, a firm handshake and a nod are both signs of respect. You want to greet women with a cheek-to-cheek kiss. Being close while talking is normal, and backing away is seen as disrespectful. I mean, they see it as you don't want to be close to them and you don't want to have that more intimate relationship. Another thing which is interesting, so hitting your left palm with your right fist indicates that you do not believe what the other person is saying. And this is a very disrespectful act that you should not do. Another thing, you don't want to give someone a knife or scissors because they use that to indicate that you want to cut off all ties from the relationship with them and could result in ending all business ties with them and their organization, which would be a very bad scenario. Many hand signals that are acceptable in the U.S. are seen as vulgar in Argentina, such as thumbs up or okay. So it is very highly advised that you do not make any motion or symbol with your body or hands unless you know exactly what it means. Now, Argentina does have some currency issues and differences from the U.S. So the currency used there is the Argentine peso. Since 2006, it's been in rapid decline and is now at the lowest point in history. So currently, the exchange rate is 1 Argentine peso to 28 cents on the American dollar. So 0.028 American dollars. This means that 1 Argentine peso is worth less than 3 U.S. cents. And that 1 U.S. dollar is worth $35.61 Argentine pesos. Money can be exchanged, though, in many different places. One of the amenities at the hotel, which is another one that they have, which is phenomenal, that you'll be staying at, is a 24-hour ATM that will allow you to withdraw money in Argentine pesos and U.S. dollars alike. You'll also be able to use traveler's checks in most large multinational businesses and banks. And you have even more opportunities to use a credit card, like Visa, MasterCard, Discover, some of the larger companies, of course. So the weather in Buenos Aires is very mild. And so in November, you're just getting good into the spring because it started in October. Temperatures are going to average from 72 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit and will rarely fall below 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Since Argentina is in the southern hemisphere, spring did begin in October and summer will go through March. And at this time of the year, the foliage is blooming and wildlife are starting to come out. They're going to be much more abundant, a lot like they are here in the U.S. Thankfully, though, in the city of Buenos Aires, there are no dangerous animals really to worry about. You're not going to have lions and tigers and bears, oh my, running about the city. Buenos Aires is in the time zone of it's GMT -3, so it's Greenwich time zone, which Greenwich time zone is actually the west end of Africa, but is -3. So you take that time zone and subtract 3 hours from it, and that's where Buenos Aires is. And they're actually 2 hours ahead of Central Standard Time. And so where it would be, say, 7 a.m. in the morning for the U.S., it's already 9 o'clock in the morning in Argentina, which, since that's a typical time that they start, 7 a.m. is the typical time the U.S. starts, it would make a very easy Skype conversation. And so let's look at some of the religion within Argentina. So Argentina religion plays a huge role in some of the traditions, customs, and cultures. So like the U.S., Argentina has a large presence of Christians. 76.5% of the total population is Roman Catholic, which of course comes from the culture of their Spanish roots, which are predominantly Roman Catholic as well. Granted, though, not all people in Argentina are Christian. There are 11.3% of the population are atheistic and agnostic. 9% are evangelical Protestants, and 1.2% are Jehovah's Witnesses. 0.9% are Mormons, and 1.2% of the population either believe in Judaism, Islam, or Buddhism. And there are some very smaller factions in there, but those are going to be your largest ones. So some political system and risk. The government in Argentina was founded on their constitution that was created in the year 1853. The most prominent form of structure in Argentine government is that it is a republic. Of course, in a republic, the people have the right to vote for somebody to represent them in government dealings. So it wasn't, though, until 1962 that a system of proportional representation was adopted. So thankfully, Argentina is one of the safest countries to visit in Latin America. But going back to the political area of that, it wasn't until 1962 until essentially we're in the U.S. we wanted to make sure that everybody had the right to vote and everybody's voice was heard and everybody had the same number of representatives within the government. This didn't happen until 1962 for Argentina, which of course we know we had Freedom Summer in 1964 and some civil rights issues, but that doesn't necessarily deal with population and representation within the government based on representation, race, and other things aside from that. Going into some of the risk factors of being in Argentina, thankfully Argentina is actually one of the safest countries to visit in Latin America. But, of course, this does not mean that crime cannot occur or that there are not inherent risks. So crime still happens, but in much smaller and compact numbers in Argentina than most of South America. So some international trade in Buenos Aires and some of the big things that Buenos Aires has going on trade-wise. So since 1975, Argentina has drastically increased its imports and exports, which is part of why it has the second largest economy in South America. Now, within the past year, the Argentinian president decided to continue working with an international trade group in order to continue to strengthen Argentina's role in the international trades. The group is actually called G20. It's just a trade group of smaller countries that are trying to better themselves so they can become larger and help the people in which reside in their countries. There's several very large industries in Argentina that are continually becoming better investment prospects. Some of them including food processing, agriculture, energy, appliance electronics, textiles, and even oil to a point. So, in a brief summary, again, this has been a guide to conducting business in Buenos Aires. Again, so I'll go over the total cost for the business trip. So airfare cost $1,314. The hotel costed $1,602. Meals and incidentals costed $903, and the estimated total cost altogether was $3,819. Again, Argentinian business world is full of very notable and important things that must be understood. The culture of the area plays a large role in how business is conducted and the way people behave with one another. When doing business in Argentina, it is always important to have a good time, look good doing it, and get everything in writing.